Welcome to the Bad Mom Show, where we flip the script on shame, shed light on what's made you feel invisible, and take your story back. It is time to step into that bold, baddie mom you were created to be. Around here, BAD stands for blessed, already approved of, and divinely designed, because you are not a bad mom. You are a leader. You were chosen for your family on purpose. You are divinely designed and anointed as the heart of your home, and you can confidently own your mantle of leadership as a fiery woman to lead with boldness, not burnout. This is your space to reclaim the parts of your story that have felt like weaknesses and discover they were actually your superpowers all along. It is time to shine as a BAD mom. Are you with me? Let's go. Hey, welcome back to the Bad Mom Show. I am Teresa Todd, your host. And as always, I am so glad that you are here. And yes, you are bad in the best way. You're blessed, already approved of, and divinely designed as the heart of your home. And that goes for you whether you are a mom, you are going to become a mom, you're a spiritual mom, you're an auntie, you're a grandma, you're a sister. You matter in this conversation as much as the traditional view of mom, because we all carry similar pains, we walk through similar experiences. We can all relate on some level to the things that make us feel bad or shameful or not good enough. We feel that pressure to perform and prove our worth and our value. We're seeking purpose and chasing things outside of ourselves when God's calling us back into who we were created to be, to our true identities, that there is purpose behind those painful things. And what was labeled bad is usually your breakthrough. It's usually where God's like, that was actually your superpower right there. I was excited when I put that in you. So this is your permission. This is your place. This is your space to feel connected with other women, to realize you're not the only one, and to see that God has great purpose and power in you, despite whatever may have happened in the past and you have believed about yourself. That's not what God says. That's not how we're moving forward, right? We're bad in the best way. So if you missed last week, I would love for you to go back and listen, but we are exploring, this is the second episode attached to the first last week's, about this thing that I don't think people talk about enough. You see it in sort of in little lines here and there on Instagram, like about how motherhood is like the longest breakup of your life, which is true. In some ways, I can totally relate to that feeling. But last week, it was about this like tightrope of love and grief that you walk through in motherhood. And I shared, some stories of some stuff that I've been going through most recently with my youngest, and it just really highlighting that tender place of like this tension of, I'm so grateful to be your mom and I love watching you grow and I love having a front row seat to all of it. And yet at the same time, like, this is heartbreak, because it's that slow breaking up. It's the grieving process of a season that for her, it's her first. For me, it's my last. And I'm not ready for that, like, I'm not really ready for what's next. I like right now, I don't want things to change. And it just really highlights how not in control we are as much as we'd like to believe we are. And, just this reality that our children aren't ours in the first place to hold on to keep to ourselves, that they're ours to steward. It's such a gift. And to really be grateful and to let yourself grieve in the love, and just to know like that is such a real feeling, and not to push it away or to feel bad about it and think that you should just be happy and joyful in all things. Or maybe you're one of the other women who have kind of bought into this idea that like, once they're gone, then I'll get my life back, and you're missing it, so it really is this tension. And obviously hindsight is always, but for the most part, I feel like when you hear older women interviewed, it's that they wish they'd spent more time with their family. They wish they had slowed down more. They wish they had just appreciated the season they were in. So whatever season you are in, that episode is for you to really kind of reflect and see how you can nurture more gratitude and cry the happy tears, feel the grief, but also feel such gratitude for being able to be that person for your children. Today, what I want to dig into is the continuation of the conversation about what happens once they don't need us anymore like they do today. What happens when they actually do leave the nest? Who will you be? So it's this question of like, who am I when my kids don't need me anymore? And this identity question that we all need to navigate. I don't know if you've ever heard people say, you better maintain that relationship with your husband because your spouse is going to be your best friend. And once your kids are gone, he's still there. He's still there looking at you. Oh my gosh, how does that make you feel? Hey, be honest. Some of you, that might have just really freaked you out. That's okay. Other people might be really excited by the idea. I know plenty of women that can't wait to start that season of their life of empty nesters and, kind of go on adventures together. There's no judgment here, but it is an interesting question to ponder, and it really is a truth to consider because there will come a day when they are not here in your home under your roof anymore. And God willing, your spouse will be, and then it's just you two. So this is an important topic. I hear a lot of women say, and it's all over culture, that motherhood takes something from you, that like women get lost, they lose themselves in motherhood, and like they don't even know who they are anymore. And I do think that can be true, that there's a sense of giving up on your own dreams and your self-care even, but then blaming motherhood for it. But really, it is a choice to do those things. You don't have to give up those things in motherhood. I certainly don't. But I do believe we can also get lost in motherhood because we take on the identity of mom and that purpose so singularly that it becomes our entire identity. And today I want to explore some of the reasons why that happens because truthfully, there is a reason, and there often is a void that motherhood is filling in a way that allows you to not have to face what the actual causes could be. It feels good to feel needed. Let's just put it out there. That's true. It feels good to be needed. And there is no other time that I have felt more needed than as a mother, especially a mom to little kids. I'm not talking baby stage where they truly, truly need you to stay alive because they can't do anything for themselves, really. But even in this adolescent phase, I love that my kids still need me. I love that they're a bit more independent, but hey, there is something very fulfilling about your kids being like lighting up the minute mommy walks in the room or screaming, mommy, and running towards you, and you being the first person they want to hug or the first person they go to and they fall down or the last person they want to hug and kiss at bedtime. That feels really good, and it should. But it's not, there is a balance, right? So it's not just being physically needed. It's obviously being emotionally needed for support and nurture and love and comfort. And all of that is definitely by design. But where it can get tricky is when it's like we become the ones that need it more than they do, you know? Um, and it is a slippery slope because you're so used to giving so much to your kids. Your whole day basically revolves around their decisions you have to make for them and their schedules and your family, keeping things in motion, keeping it rolling. But there is a piece of us that can get too wrapped up in needing that validation, needing to be needed. So we're going to talk about that because it's a slippery slope. And it can lead to things like unhealthy attachment and codependence. And we're going to talk about this word idols because, yes, we can make an idol out of our children. We can make idols out of motherhood. So let's talk about our identity. Truthfully, yes, there are seasons when much of your identity is wrapped up in motherhood, and that's okay because it's just for a season, but you don't have to completely lose yourself. Women complain that they feel guilty making time for themselves, but as we know, the more you pour into yourself and take care of yourself, the better you can show up as a mom. Or, spending all your time and energy and focus on your kids leaves you exhausted by the end of the day. So then once they're in bed, there's no energy, no time for connection with your husband. And that's when things can start to fall into a dependency and an unhealthy attachment, I guess we'll call it right now. So it's not the kids so much depending on mommy, it's mommy depending on the kids. And certainly this can happen with fathers too. But this is the Bad Mom Show. So I'm speaking to the women. But yeah. So it's like it becomes a replacement for healthy intimacy. And I'm not talking physical intimacy, obviously. That is not, we're not talking about abuse or something like that. I'm talking about the emotional connection that you can get from your kids that allows you to avoid maybe the problem going on in the marriage. If intimacy with your spouse is strained, do you find it a lot easier to spend time with your kids or, end the night snuggling in bed with them and then falling asleep and just going to bed yourself without ever having any connection and where you can be just like literally like a conversation with your spouse or sitting on the couch. Um, you know, I know many women can relate to this and might not want to admit to it, but parenting does allow you to neglect areas of the marriage that maybe aren't going so well. But truthfully, a healthy marriage is what children need to see. So if it has become sort of this scapegoat way to avoid that intimacy with your husband, I'm not talking the physical because that should be happening in private anyway, but the emotional connection. And yeah, it's healthy for kids to see their parents holding hands or going on a date night or sitting on the couch and making time to talk with one another and enjoying each other's company. But truthfully, that does often get neglected. And then the marriage kind of falls to the wayside. And it seems like a healthy reason because you got to focus on your kids, but really it's become an excuse to not deal with the problems in the marriage. So that is not healthy for the child or children because it's not their responsibility to bear the weight of our emotional needs. It's just not. And as we know, they're more than happy to soak up mommy's attention and they're more than happy to give the snuggles most of the time. But it's not their place to fill that void for us. So I'm going to throw out some big terms at you. You can go look into them with more detail if you'd like to. But there are terms for this type of attachment. There's codependency, and that's just a large term for unhealthy, unequal attachment where a parent is using the child to fulfill their own emotional needs, intentionally or unintentionally. But the importance is to be curious and draw awareness to it. In codependency, they can often be controlling the child's life to maintain that closeness. So not wanting them to leave, right? Once they're old enough to launch, not wanting them to. Or, you hear about kids coming home and just the mom's like, yes, you can stay here forever. And, then all of a sudden you got like a man child on your hands. Like kids, they need some personal responsibility and independence. But I'm joking, but not really. You know what I mean? So that's one term. Another one, enmeshment. And this refers to the blurring of boundaries between a parent and a child. This is when a parent fails to establish a separate identity from their child, making the child responsible for their emotional well-being and happiness. So being so overly committed to the child's success, maybe as an athlete or um, maybe excelling in a certain area in school or just devoting their entire life. I mean, there is a large culture right now around, and I'm not even going to get into this because I know a lot of families, and I am not judging this at all because I have a lot of friends that do team sports and team dance. We've done team stuff too. It's a major commitment, and it is disruptive to the family dynamic, and it does kind of become this especially if you have multiple two ships in a night where you could very well not spend any time as a family and definitely not as a couple because one's with one kid 3 hours away, another one's with another kid, maybe out of state. It becomes this whole identity is about the child and the child's success and the focus, the level of commitment has become like the child's success is reflective of the parent and their well-being, their emotional happiness. Another word to throw at you is triangulation. Now, this is when a parent leans on a child in a very unhealthy way, say venting to the child about the other parent, putting the child in that inappropriate role, really, of being an emotional peer, essentially, a support peer, like you're calling a friend to hash out something, or teaming up with the child against the other parent. It's really unhealthy for the child, causes a lot of emotional distress, creates a lot of boundary issues for the child, loyalty conflicts, because they don't want to upset dad. So then they're yelling at mom or vice versa, protecting the parent, or parentification, where the child is taking on adult responsibilities that they are never meant to take on. They are way too young for. But this can happen. So these are real issues when we're not aware of how our own needs come into play. We are people. We bring our baggage, our stuff, not only to our marriage relationship, but to the family. And so if there's unmet needs, it could be a case where we start leaning on our kids a little too heavily because it's easier, right? Let's think about it. When intimacy with your spouse feels hard, it's a lot easier with your kid because they're not really expecting much else from you in return. But let's be honest, your spouse, especially the men, they're very physically driven. They're needy. Oh, we're getting honest today, guys. They can be very needy. And I know a lot of women who that can feel like a burden. They're not really interested in the physical intimacy like their husband is. But hey, friend, thank you so much for being here and following the Bad Mom Show. I would love to hear from you. So let's connect. After the show, send me a DM and let me know what's hitting home for you. What do you struggle with the most as a mom? And what topics would you like to hear more about? This show is all about connection in the community because that is how we truly grow. So reach out to me at the Teresa Todd on Instagram, Facebook, or even TikTok, and I cannot wait to hear from you. Without it, you basically become like roommates. And so it's important to nurture that part of your relationship and engage each other and have conversations and date nights and all those healthy things. But that requires effort and it can be uncomfortable, especially if there's wounding there in the relationship, especially if there's personal trauma that you or your spouse hasn't really unpackaged fully. That brokenness is going to come up every time your closeness is coming. Intimacy is a big place where trust is broken and trauma is formed, but that doesn't go away once we become adults if you don't deal with it. So owning your trauma and understanding like, okay, I do have some intimacy issues, or you know what? We have not had healthy communication for a long time, or we haven't been physically intimate, or whatever it is. You guys are, triggering each other and you're not feeling loved and seen and valued by your partner. It's a lot easier to go spend time with your kids who aren't asking for that extra from you, right? They just love you because you're mom and they think you're cool and like to spend time with you and they're snuggly because they're little kids and it doesn't feel as threatening. But that doesn't make it okay to be a replacement for that intimacy that you're supposed to have with your spouse. So focusing on or becoming aware of if that's happening, are there places where your needs are not being met? And instead of healing those places, whether it's in a relationship or pouring more into yourself, personal self-care, or maybe it's even like your personal interests and friendships, and you've just become very isolated and it's just you've kind of forgotten how to put that effort out there. Um, it can become this dependency that is not really our children's to bear. Okay, let's talk about the faith piece because this is an important part of it. God has a hierarchy for our relationships, and He did not design our children to be the center of our worlds. Believe it or not. I know sometimes our children just think they are the center of our worlds. And sometimes we treat them like they're the center of our worlds. But He did design them to be loved, to be cherished, but not to be worshiped. And that's an important distinction because it's very easy to start worshiping your child, worshiping the ground they walk on and thinking they're the best thing in the world. And I get it. Everybody thinks their kid's the best, but to a healthy degree. They are not meant to meet our needs emotionally or in terms of like a partner in a relationship. And again, we're not talking about physical abuse things like that is just not allowed. So let's talk about the hierarchy that God has in place for our relationships. First and foremost, it's God. He is our number one source of love, unconditional love for our identity, to know who we are because He's the one that created us. He knew us before we were even born. Our, purpose isn't something that we go and find out in the world. I know the world tells us that we have to go seek our purpose, that motherhood robbed you of your purpose. But no, purpose is usually found in the story that you've lived and in the places that you feel called and in the things that you feel really passionate about, that maybe there's gifting behind that pain because you've walked through some things and you can help people in a way that nobody else can. So, but all that comes from spending time with God and knowing who we are in Christ and how He feels about us, our worth. I mean, come on, especially as women, I feel like there is this performance pressure to prove we're enough, to prove we're good, to prove we can do more, be better, when God's not asking us for any of that. He's like, your worth is inherent because I created you and I love you and I call you unique and wonderful and masterfully made. You're my masterpiece. So there's no one like you. I don't know why you think you have to go out and prove that you're different or better than somebody else. That's not from God. We can honestly, we could lean on our spouse too much for this validation too. So the hierarchy is God first. If you are seeking your validation from your spouse, or if your spouse is needing that validation from you, it might be time to go spend a little extra time with Jesus, because that is not our duty. Our duty, yes, is to co-labor, to be partners, and you do become one, but it does not become your sole responsibility to fulfill their needs and make them feel filled up. There is a level of that is a personal responsibility. And that responsibility is spending time with God, spending time in the Word, and knowing who you are because of whose you are. You are His first and foremost. So that's just important to point out too. Only God can fulfill the deepest longings of your heart. Only God can help you heal those broken places in your story. We are human. So even if you have the best relationship with your spouse and you think like, I hit the jackpot, they are human. You are human. We are broken people. Our love is conditional. We get angry. We don't like each other once in a while. But God does not turn away. He does not get disappointed. And He says, my love is unconditional. I know about your mess, but I don't turn away. And that is the beautiful part of once you start realizing that, like, oh my gosh, I have never gotten that in my human experience because nobody can deliver it the way God can. So He is our first and foremost source of all of those things. Then, once we're rooted in truth and love from God, then can we become a spouse, and then can we co-join with our partner in life, who we make this declaration and we commit to each other before God. It's not just us saying it to each other. We're committing with God in the middle of this marriage that we become one. And you cleave from your family and you become one together, and then you start your own family. It's a partnership and a forever bond, yes. But it takes work, it takes intentionality, it's a commitment. You have to commit to it daily. And there are seasons where it's easier than others. And children are a beautiful gift and part of that partnership, but they're not meant to replace what only you and your spouse can are intended to build together, right? Our kids are not responsible for our emotional needs. They're just not. It's not okay to vent to them about your spouse and put that weight on them because then they're torn and that's not okay. And then the third tier in our priorities here, so God first, spouse second, is our children. They come third. And you know what comes after that? Family, after family. Then comes business and all the other things. And we talk about priorities and God's hierarchy. It's God, it's marriage and family, and then it's business after that. So maybe that's a whole other topic. But third is our children, and they are our assignment. This is your mantle of leadership that you were chosen for. You didn't have to go earn it. God called you to this position. So you must own it and you must stand in it with authority and take on that responsibility. But it's stewardship, it's not ownership. And that's a hard truth. They are not ours. They are His. They are ours for a season. It's temporary. And that's heartbreaking. I know. But that was always the plan. It has never been that they were yours to keep forever and ever. They're yours to lead well. And what does it mean to be a good leader? Well, you equip them, you teach them, you nurture them, and then you send them off. You launch them into the world to go on their mission, on their assignment. And that comes from years and days of repetition, but speaking life and repairing and praying and all those beautiful things that we get to do for our kids and with our kids. But they are not ours to keep. And that can be sad, but it's true. So I'm going to talk about this word idolatry because that's really what this is all about, is making idols of our kids. And if that word feels strong to you, let's define it. An idol is anything that you look to for what only God can provide. That's a simple definition. Anything that becomes your focus and takes on more significance than your relationship with God. So there are a lot of things that can become idols, especially in this world of distraction right now, like success and achievements or money. How many people chase the dollars, but they are not fulfilled inside. They feel completely empty and sad because they don't have a relationship with God. They don't know themselves. And you cannot fill that void with money. You can't fill it with success or achievements or fame. And even motherhood or your spouse or your children can become an idol. So it's anything that takes on more importance to you. Influence on social media, people idolize their following. It's ridiculous. So, yes, things like your significance, your identity, your worth and your value, and your purpose. When anything else becomes the source of those things that only God is intended to fulfill, then it's becoming an idol. And when you think about your children and motherhood, this has become your idol, your source of significance and identity and purpose and worth and value, and it's completely all wrapped up in this one thing. What happens when they leave? What is your identity, right? You will feel lost. And it might start creating fear and anxiety in you already. And you might start wanting to control things, control them, because you're afraid of losing what you've built your identity on. And that is not healthy. So when your identity is rooted in God, then we can celebrate their independence. We can cheer their growth and cry through it because we're sad to let them go. But how grateful, again, go back and listen to last week's episode, how grateful to have the front row seat to watching these beautiful people that God entrusted into your hands go become who God created them to be and to be part of that process. You can let them go without losing yourself. And I know there is a part of us, of course, when that season comes, that feels like it's dying. It is a letting go. It is the end of a season, but you will always be their mom. Just you won't be needed in the way you are anymore. And you still have purpose even once they leave. And you might know that, but really feeling that way and letting yourself be grateful right now in every step of every season so that when that time comes, it doesn't feel like such a shock. Wow, this house is quiet. When I start grumbling about messes lately, I'm like, Lord, thank you that my sink is full of dishes and there's blankets on the floor and the couch is a mess and there's overflowing laundry because it means my kids are here. They're under my roof. And it makes me want to cry thinking about it. But it's a tough reality. One day they're not going to need you the way they do today. And as much as it hurts, it's not a tragedy because that's always been the goal. And what a gift that our job is to help prepare them to be launched into the world, to do great things, to be kingdom warriors, to be leaders, to build businesses, to do great works for God in ways that only they can, because that is who God created them to be. It's so beautiful. So, yes, this episode is not about loving your kids any less, but it is about loving them and yourself in a healthy way. And I know you love them more than life itself. I get it. But it's promising them and you that your life will not rise and fall based on their need for you. And that your identity is securely rooted in God, securely rooted in who He created you to be. And if it's not, spend more time with Him. Go to Him with your needs, with your pains, with your worries. Be open to exploring your story. I coach people through that because He has so much more to say about those painful places that you have kept in the dark, where shame has driven you, where fear and insecurity or lies and labels from the past have made you feel bad or not good enough. God has such redemption for all of those things, but only He can do that with you in that number one top priority relationship. And your purpose continues to evolve with every season. It's not just a one and done. We're wrapping it up. So I hope this message spoke to you. I hope it gave you some things to think about. If it ruffled feathers, let me know. But most importantly, I just want you to remember that before you were a mom, you are a woman, you are a daughter, and you are God's creation. And He has so much purpose for you. And it is a beautiful gift to be in this season with your children, with your family, but it is not the end of your story. I have some reflective questions for you to consider. So if you want to write them down, great. If not, just come back to this part of the episode, listen to it again. But these are great questions to ponder in your quiet time. Bring them to the Holy Spirit, maybe journal on them a little bit. But just a few things to consider. Number one, have I allowed motherhood to become my primary identity? And again, without judgment, this is always with curiosity. And if you have, think about maybe areas where there's some other lack, there's some need, a void, and they're easier to fulfill that need, whether it's feeling seen and loved and valued, closeness, emotional closeness, even the snuggly closeness. Have my children become a substitute for connection? Do I need to pursue connection in other places? So this is when you explore that. Is there a void? Is it with your spouse? How healthy is your marriage? Everybody's marriage needs work at some point. No one just gets married and has a perfect marriage. And anyone that tells you that, I have questions. Marriages take work, and that's part of the beautiful gift of it. But is it connection with your spouse? Is it connection with friends? Have you become really isolated in your motherhood? Or is it reconnecting with the things that make you feel alive and joyful? What do you like to do? Do you still nurture your personal interests? I love to sing. I love to dance. Do I love to have dance parties with my kids and sing with them? Yes. But do I love to go to a fun dance class or go with my girlfriends to a fun dance brunch, which they have a really fun one here? Yeah, because that makes me feel like me. That makes me feel alive. Okay, next question. What would it look like to enjoy my children without building my identity around them? So if there are areas where they have kind of taken on your sole attention, sole focus, maybe consider that. Where do I look for significance and worth outside of God? This is an important question for all of us to ponder because we are human and this world offers you a lot of options outside of Him. So think about that. Where do I look for significance and worth outside of God? Even doing healthy pursuits. Is it for God or is it for you? Is it for the approval of man? Is it seeking that validation from other people because that feels good and that's how you learn to get by? Again, it's just curiosity. We all have our patterns. And then lastly, what is God inviting me to cultivate in this season beyond motherhood? because I truly believe motherhood is so rewarding, but it's refining. And there's always a new level that God is trying to take us to because we never arrive. You're maturing, you're growing, you're developing into who you're created to be too. And that doesn't just stop because you became a mom. So, what is God inviting you to cultivate in this season? More of what? Maybe something needs to be pruned so you can cultivate more of what God wants to cultivate in your life in this season. Well, that is what I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I really do. I hope it spoke to you. I hope it sparked some new thoughts, new curiosities. And again, go listen to last week's first. But if this hit home for you, please let me know. I love hearing from you in my DMs. Let me know what spoke to you. Please feel free to share this with a friend. And absolutely would love if you could leave a review. That's how the show gets pushed out to more and more women, and we spread this message and grow this beautiful community of bad moms because they deserve to know that they are blessed, already approved of, and divinely designed as the hearts of their homes too. All right. Thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate you. Be sure you're subscribed to the show so you don't miss an episode, and I will see you next week.